Well, welcome everybody to the Yoga Philosophy discussion group brought to you by the Yoga Center of Chico. I'm Lauren Carley, and with me is Tom Hess, the owner of the Yoga Center of Chico. This is a series that we're doing that's a special series that the Yoga Center supports. And it's a yoga philosophy discussion group. We have been through several books, and this recording will be the last half of the last chapter of Light on Life by Mr. Iyengar. These sessions are held once a month on the fourth Thursday. And in addition to these recordings of the material, we meet live at the Yoga Center of Chico and we open a Zoom link. So anybody in the world can join into the discussion live. And so with that, and you can get the link on the Yoga Center Chico's website. The link is always there. It's the same link every time. So with that, we're going to summarize today the last half of the last chapter of Light on Life. The chapter named Freedom, Living in Freedom, starting on page 246. So I will do some summarization, then Tom will follow on with what he would like to say about it. Every chapter in this book is power packed. It's got a lot of information, and every time I've read this book, I see different things in it. So the approach I take is to pick out some of the phrases or sentences or paragraphs that Iyengar puts in here that I think summarize the points in the particular chapter, the particular material that we're looking at. So living in freedom. I like what he says at the beginning, which we already did, which is the part one of this chapter. But he says, once you reach samadhi, if you do in this lifetime, you are in a state of non-doing. You can't do anything. But then it begs the question, what happens when you come out? How do you live your life after that? And so living in freedom is what his answer is to that question. And he starts the second half. Oh, there's 5 parts of this half. Ethics, universal and personal. The next subsections, yamas, stuff with yamas, the niyamas, and then purity and cleanliness. And he ends with a subsection called Life is Learning. So his introduction to this half talks about ethics, universal and personal on page 246. And he starts off with talking about Purusha. He says spirit, but he means Purusha, and nature, Prakriti, are not separate. He says that as a statement. The evolution or involution, since we've been going through the koshas, that we have achieved in discovering our soul must be made manifest in our bodies and lives. Pretty powerful concept. In fact, he says, one cannot grow spiritually without increasing one's moral and ethical awareness. And this is his launch into this second half, increasing our ethical and moral awareness. Progressively, we have to transform ourselves in such a way that we can engage and act in the world without becoming entangled and tainted by it. I love that summary for this part of the book. It's a great way to paint the picture and show the path forward. Then on 247, he goes into something else I want to highlight here. He goes on to elaborate on this. One who has transcended the 3 qualities of nature, meaning the gunas, is able to act totally in a neutral way. And I highlighted this because some of the discussions that we've had on the Thursdays, people have asked questions about, do you abandon an idea? What do you do? And it's right here. You act in a neutral way. So I'm highlighting that for that reason. The yogi does not seek to be recognized as virtuous. He becomes a dharmi, D-H-A-R-M-I, dharmi, a righteous person who merely enacts his duty as an end and fulfillment in and of itself. A dharmi, a righteous person who merely acts his duty as an end and fulfillment of itself. Common theme, we've seen it throughout this book. We've seen it in the Gita, and I think it's also in the sutras. So then he shifts into some terms and definitions. I won't go through each of them here, but the four that I picked out were the yamas. He redefines yoga, ethics, and morals. And he distinguishes between ethics and morals. Ethics are designed to make life bearable. They are not dictates of an authoritarian God, but principally based on an absolute an absolute with a capital A, an absolute capability, capable of reconciling. Let me get this up there. The one with the many. In fact, it is, I love this. In fact, it is better to not believe in God and act as though he exists than to believe in him and act as though he did not. In yoga is not a question of acceptance of a God or not. God is felt, but cannot be expressed in words. If consciousness can be purified, then the existence of the cosmic force can be felt. And that summary of his, not Iyengar's, but the approach to thinking about a Godhead in yoga, I think really drives this home when you practice through, particularly through the koshas. And then moving on, he says, page 250, as one increasingly feels the existence and pull of the divine, one's actions more easily align with the ethical impulse of the capital A absolute. Now it goes into quite a bit of description of the yamas, living with true ethics, he calls it. And I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to, one can read this. So this is a summary that we're giving here to entice people to get into the book and read it. But he talks about the yamas as the culture of self-restraint. Yama also means the god of death. If the principles of yama are not followed, we deliberately act as murderers of the soul. And I've always wondered about the definition of yama as the god of death and yamas as these true ethics. And there you have it. If you don't follow them, or you abandon them, or you're unaware of them, you may be subject to Yama, the god of death. So, ahimsa, not harming, satya, truthfulness. Again, there's detailed definitions here and elsewhere. And he talks about how this truth is not a weapon to be used, and the sword has two edges. So be careful when you start developing and seeing, particularly with your mind's eye, the real truth. The exercise of the yamas, which are the external moralities, can therefore not exceed the culture and refinement of the person concerned. But you can go on and on and on about truth and the yamas and all this, but if you're talking to somebody that just simply doesn't have the awareness, you're wasting your time. It is only through refining the self that we are really improve the quality of the morality. And then he goes on to, let's see here. Oh yeah, I wanted to highlight this on page 256, yamas. Yama is the cultivation of the positive within us, not merely a suppression of what we consider to be its diabolical opposite. It's moving in the positive direction, not restraining ourselves because we feel like that is something that we have to do. There's no have tos for us. We should be moving in a positive direction, drawn toward it, rather than it being some kind of endurance test. And then, of course, it goes on to the niyamas, purifying ourselves, samsha, cleanliness, santosha, contentment, papa, sustained practice, the energy to sustain and elevate our each of our practices, our personal practice, savadhaya, self-study, which relates to the level of pratyahara. You can, according to Mr. Iyengar, if you have a pratyahara practice, an inward investment of the energies, that helps here. And then Ishvara Pranidhana, humble surrender to God or bhakti. So essentially, in the big picture, in this last half of this last chapter, he's saying, in my view, take all of your practice as far as you've taken it in this particular point in time and apply it to the yamas and niyamas. Use them, integrate them into your life. You know, the 8 petals of yoga all join together at one center point. They're all in effect at the same time. I think it depends on where you're putting your emphasis, where you're putting your consciousness, and how you integrate all of these into your life. And on 258, another way he summarizes this, it's a long journey from taking a bath to meeting God. This is why Light on Life is so easy to digest and read in today's world. It's a long journey from Sausha cleanliness to simply taking a bath to meeting God. And then he goes on to the next subsection, purity and cleanliness. He says we easily practice the first and second niyamas. The third and fourth and fifth form a unit. Tapas, the heat that transforms your practice, self-knowledge, and surrender of the ego to God, Ishvar Pranihana, surrender of the ego. That's the hard one. You think that an Iyengar asana practice is hard? Wait till you have to work with the ego if you're not already. Everybody always is, but whether they're doing it consciously or not is another question. Okay. I think there's more information, more detail on each of the niyamas. And then I want to move to the last subsection, life is learning, page 265. He says, all sheaths and elements are interwoven in consciousness. Kind of what I was talking about earlier, but he's saying it better. The ultimate reach of yoga is the total transformation of the chitta that pervades the whole being with awareness that knows no frontiers. Yoga is a path that can lead to the integration of the body, the mind, and the soul. If that isn't yoga, I don't know what is. And the yogic fire, yoga agni, exists in everyone. The question is, how much can we tap into it and use it for our benefit and the benefit of everybody around us? And then finally, this is interesting. So in the last half of the last chapter, the last few sentences, how does he wrap all this up? On page 266, he says, body and mind are servers and followers of the soul. This is another way too of alluding to how some people say that Prakriti serves Purusha. Life, he says, live before you die so that death is also a lively celebration. Here's where he leaves us. Live before you die so that death is also a lively celebration. Which, of course, I absolutely love that. But with that, let me turn it over to Tom to fill in the other half that I so blithely skipped over.
Well, thank you,
Tom,
Lauren.
I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren. I thought
Okay.
it was a fine presentation. I just want to sort of take a look at the big picture here. What he's doing is he's taking us back to the beginning, but it's a different beginning because we, if one has gone through this journey of the yoga practice and they start, and I remember the first time I ever started to read any philosophy about yoga, it was about the eight limbs, yamas, niyamas, and so forth. And so there, at that point, I had a perception, an understanding of those topics. But after all these years, and life too, life is a big lesson. Um, my definition of those things, my perception of those things has changed, and it hasn't changed like dramatically. It's just deepened. It's deepened rather, and that deepening has come from my practice, both philosophical and asana. So I think the big picture here is it's a self-contained practice loop where you start and you learn certain things and you go through the pranayamas, the asanas, the meditations, all that kind of stuff, and then you've changed. And then when you change and start it all over again, the process is different because you're different, but you will go deeper into the asanas, deeper into all of these things. So that's where I sort of, the big picture view that I got from this is just a continual cycle of work every time, or practice, deepening, deepening, and deepening every time you do it. And he's just telling us, hey, you got to take care of these important ethics and morals, or everything else is lost. And you got to come back to them. And they change as you progress in your practice. You change, they change. So I think that's for me, that's the big picture that I got out of it. Yeah. Other than that, I want to thank Lauren for doing this whole thing with me, or me doing it with her, whatever which way it worked. But this has been a great journey and of Light on Life, and we will continue. In September, we will be starting the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali again, and we'll take a few years to do that. So there's just like everything, knowledge, there is no limit to knowledge. There is no depth. So we just have to keep looking, and we change, it changes. We go deeper, read different things and so forth. So anyway, it's been great being here and through Light on Life with all of you that have participated and with Lauren. So with that, thank you. Okay. Okay.
Yep,
Well, great.
we're
Thanks a
done.
lot, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.